The cafe buzzed with the familiar hum of conversations and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. I sat at our usual table by the window, the one with the view of the bustling street outside. This place, with its exposed brick walls and vintage posters, had been our spot for years. Emma and I had shared countless dreams and laughter here, back when life seemed simpler, more hopeful. Today, however, the air was thick with an unsettling tension, a premonition that something was about to shift. I glanced at my watch, a sleek smartwatch that tracked everything from my heart rate to my emails. Emma was late, which wasn't unusual, but today it felt different. My phone vibrated with a notification, a reminder of a meeting I had later that afternoon. I swiped it away, my mind elsewhere. As the CEO of a successful tech startup, I was used to the constant buzz of notifications, the never-ending stream of information. But today, all I could focus on was the empty chair across from me. When Emma finally walked in, she looked different. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, and she wore a dress I didn't recognize, something sleek and expensive, far from her usual casual style. Beside her was Lucas, a man I had seen only in passing at the gym, always surrounded by an aura of confidence and a crowd of admirers. His muscular build and flashy watch were a stark contrast to my own understated presence. Emma slid into the chair across from me, her eyes meeting mine briefly before flicking away. Lucas stood behind her, a smug smile playing on his lips. I felt a knot form in my stomach, a sense of dread washing over me. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. "Alex," Emma began, her voice steady but distant, "I think it's time we talk about the future." I nodded, trying to keep my expression neutral. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder, placing it on the table between us. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately, about us, about what I want in life." She paused, her fingers tracing the edge of the folder. "And I've realized that I'm not happy, Alex. I haven't been for a long time." I stared at the folder, a sense of unease growing within me. "Emma, what are you saying?" She pushed the folder towards me, her eyes finally meeting mine. "I want a divorce, Alex. I've already spoken to a lawyer, and everything is in order. I just need your signature." The world seemed to slow down around me as I processed her words. Divorce. It was a concept that had never crossed my mind, not seriously. We had been together for so long, built a life together. How could she want to throw it all away? I looked up at Lucas, who was still standing behind Emma, his arms crossed over his chest. He met my gaze with a challenging stare, as if daring me to react. I realized then that he was more than just a gym acquaintance. He was the reason Emma was sitting across from me, her eyes cold and distant. "Is this about him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "It's about me, Alex. About what I want, what I need. I can't keep living like this, pretending to be happy when I'm not." I felt a surge of anger, hot and fierce. "And you think he can make you happy? Some guy who flaunts his muscles and his watch like they're the most important things in the world." Emma's expression hardened. "Don't make this about him, Alex. This is about us. About the fact that we've grown apart, that we want different things in life." I shook my head, disbelief coursing through me. "I can't believe you're doing this, Emma. After everything we've been through, everything we've built together." She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I'm sorry, Alex, but I can't keep living a lie. I need more than what you can give me." With that, she turned and walked away, Lucas falling into step beside her. I watched them go, a mix of shock, anger, and betrayal swirling within me. The cafe, once a place of comfort and familiarity, now felt cold and unwelcoming. I picked up the folder, my hands shaking slightly as I opened it. Inside were the divorce papers, crisp and white, a stark contrast to the chaos raging within me. I scanned the documents, my eyes blurring as I took in the legal jargon. It was all there, laid out in black and white. Emma wanted half of everything: the house, the savings, the life we had built together. I closed the folder, a sense of determination washing over me. I wouldn't let her take everything from me, not without a fight. I pulled out my phone and dialed Jamie, my childhood best friend, and the one person I knew I could count on. "Jamie," I said when he answered, my voice steady despite the turmoil within me. "I need your help. Emma wants a divorce." There was a pause on the other end of the line, and then Jamie's voice, calm and reassuring. "I'm on my way, Alex. We'll figure this out together." As I hung up the phone, I felt a glimmer of hope. I wouldn't let Emma's betrayal define me. I would fight back, not out of spite, but to protect what I had built and to understand my own worth. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one that would test my resilience and force me to confront the truth about myself and my marriage. The days following Emma's bombshell were a blur of meetings, legal consultations, and sleepless nights. I found myself oscillating between disbelief, anger, and a profound sense of loss. Our apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a museum of broken promises, each room echoing with memories that seemed to mock me. I needed to escape, to find a space where I could think clearly and strategize my next move. Jamie, ever the steadfast friend, offered me his guest house, a small, modern cabin tucked away in the woods, far from the city's relentless hum. It was the perfect retreat, equipped with all the tech amenities I needed to stay connected while providing the solitude necessary for reflection. The drive up was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the electric engine and the occasional ping of a notification on my phone. As the cityscape gave way to towering trees, I felt a slight easing of the tension that had been gripping my chest since that fateful cafe meeting. The cabin was a stark contrast to the sleek, minimalist aesthetic of our city apartment. Warm wood tones, plush furnishings, and a fireplace that promised cozy evenings replaced the cold, modern lines I had grown accustomed to. I unpacked my bag, the few items I had brought feeling meager compared to the life I was leaving behind. As I settled in, I couldn't help but think about how Emma would have scoffed at the simplicity of it all. She had always been drawn to the flashy and extravagant, a trait that had become increasingly apparent in the past few years. I spent the first few days in a state of numbness, going through the motions of daily life without truly engaging. I cooked simple meals, the act of chopping vegetables and stirring pots grounding me in a way that the constant buzz of the city never could. I took long walks in the woods, the crunch of leaves underfoot, and the crisp autumn air filling my lungs with a sense of clarity. It was during one of these walks that I received a call from Victoria, my attorney and longtime friend. "Alex, I've done some digging," she said, her voice crisp and professional. "Emma has hired Anderson Clark. They're known for their aggressive tactics and high success rate. We need to be prepared." The name sent a shiver down my spine. Anderson Clark was a powerhouse in the legal world, known for their ruthless strategies and impressive client list. I had always admired their work from afar, never imagining that I would one day be on the receiving end of their prowess. "What do you suggest?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Victoria paused, and I could almost hear the gears turning in her head. "We need to be strategic, Alex. We can't let them catch us off guard. We need to anticipate their moves and be ready to counter them." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I understand. I'll start looking into their past cases, see if we can find any patterns or weaknesses." As I hung up the phone, a sense of determination washed over me. I wouldn't let Emma and her high-powered lawyers steamroll me. I had built my tech empire from the ground up, facing countless challenges and setbacks along the way. This was just another obstacle to overcome, another battle to fight. I spent the following days immersed in research, poring over legal documents and case studies on my laptop. The cabin, once a place of solitude and reflection, had become a war room of sorts, filled with the hum of my laptop and the rustle of papers. I delved into the history of Anderson Clark, studying their tactics and strategies with the same intensity I had once reserved for coding and business plans. As I dug deeper, I began to notice patterns in their approach, the way they would exploit weaknesses in their opponents' cases, the ruthless efficiency with which they pursued their goals. It was both terrifying and exhilarating, a challenge that ignited a fire within me. I began to see the divorce not as a loss, but as an opportunity to prove my worth, to show Emma and the world that I was not someone to be underestimated. During this time, Jamie was a constant source of support and encouragement. He would call me every evening, his voice a welcome distraction from the legal jargon and strategic planning that consumed my days. We would talk about everything and nothing, his laughter a reminder of the simple joys in life. He would share stories of our childhood adventures, reminding me of the person I was before the tech world and the trappings of success had taken over. "Remember when we used to dream of building our own company?" he said one evening, his voice filled with nostalgia. "We'd stay up all night, brainstorming ideas and planning our future." I smiled, the memory warm and comforting. We were so naive back then, thinking we could take on the world with nothing but our ideas and determination. Jamie chuckled. "Maybe we were naive, but we did it, Alex. We built something from nothing, and look at you now, a successful CEO, fighting for what's rightfully yours." His words struck a chord within me, a reminder of the resilience and determination that had defined my journey. I had faced countless challenges and setbacks, but I had never let them define me. I had always found a way to rise above, to turn obstacles into opportunities. As the days turned into weeks, I began to see the divorce not as an end, but as a beginning, a chance to redefine myself, to discover who I was beneath the layers of success and expectation. I began to question the values that had guided my life, the priorities that had shaped my decisions. I realized that I had been so focused on building my empire that I had lost sight of the things that truly mattered: authenticity, simplicity, and the impact I could have on the world around me. This awakening was both liberating and terrifying. It forced me to confront the truth about myself and my marriage, to acknowledge the cracks that had been forming beneath the surface. I began to see Emma's betrayal not as a personal failure, but as a symptom of a deeper issue: a disconnect between the life I had been living and the values I held dear. With this newfound clarity, I began to strategize my next move. I wouldn't let Emma and her lawyers dictate the terms of the divorce. I would fight back, not out of spite or a desire for revenge, but to protect what I had built and to assert my own worth. I began to see the legal battle not as a personal attack, but as a chess game, a strategic dance of moves and countermoves, each one bringing me closer to the truth about myself and the life I wanted to live. As I sat in the cabin, the fire crackling softly in the background, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was no longer the shocked and betrayed husband, reeling from the blow of Emma's revelation. I was a warrior, armed with knowledge and determination, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I was awake, alive, and ready to reclaim my life. The cabin had become more than just a retreat. It was a sanctuary where I could strategize and reflect without the constant noise of the city. The days were filled with the hum of my laptop, the rustle of legal documents, and the occasional call with Victoria or Jamie. Each piece of information I uncovered about Anderson Clark brought me one step closer to understanding their tactics and weaknesses. But it was a discovery about my own assets that truly shifted the dynamics of the battle. One evening, as I sat by the fireplace, a glass of wine in hand, I received an email from my financial advisor. It contained a detailed breakdown of my investments, including a list of shell companies and holdings that I had almost forgotten about. As I scrolled through the document, one name jumped out at me: Anderson Clark. I owned a significant stake in the very law firm that Emma had hired to represent her. The realization sent a jolt of electricity through me. This was the leverage I needed. I immediately called Victoria, my voice barely containing my excitement. "Victoria, I just found out something incredible. I own a substantial portion of Anderson Clark through one of my shell companies." There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line, followed by a low whistle. "Alex, that changes everything. If you own a significant stake in the firm, you have the power to influence their decisions, including who they represent." A plan began to form in my mind, a strategy that would turn the tables on Emma and her high-powered lawyers. I would use my ownership stake to disqualify Anderson Clark from representing her, effectively pulling the rug out from under her legal strategy. It was a bold move, one that required careful planning and execution. Over the next few days, I worked closely with Victoria to gather all the necessary documents and evidence. We pored over legal precedents, case studies, and corporate bylaws, ensuring that every detail was accounted for. I also reached out to Jamie, who had always been my sounding board and confidant. He listened intently as I laid out my plan, his eyes widening with each revelation. "Alex, this is brilliant," he said, a grin spreading across his face. "You're not just fighting back, you're playing chess while they're playing checkers." His words bolstered my confidence, reinforcing my belief that I was on the right path. This wasn't just about winning the legal battle, it was about reclaiming my power and asserting my worth. I had built my tech empire from the ground up, facing countless challenges and setbacks along the way. This was just another obstacle to overcome, another opportunity to prove my resilience and strategic prowess. As the day of the court hearing approached, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. I had prepared meticulously, leaving no stone unturned. I had assembled a team of legal experts, including Victoria and a few trusted advisors, to support me in the courtroom. I had also taken the time to reflect on my journey, acknowledging the pain and betrayal that had led me to this moment. But I refused to let those emotions define me. Instead, I channeled them into a fierce determination to fight for what was rightfully mine. The morning of the hearing, I woke up to the soft hum of the forest outside my cabin window. I took a deep breath, the crisp air filling my lungs with a sense of clarity and purpose. I dressed carefully, choosing a suit that exuded confidence and professionalism without being ostentatious. As I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I saw a man who had been through the fire and emerged stronger, more resilient. The drive to the courthouse was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the electric engine. As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw Emma and Lucas standing outside, their heads bent in conversation. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the battle ahead. This was the moment I had been preparing for, the culmination of weeks of strategizing and reflection. As I walked into the courthouse, Victoria and Jamie flanked me on either side, their presence a source of strength and support. The courtroom was filled with a low hum of conversations, the air thick with anticipation. I took my seat at the table, my back straight and my eyes focused on the judge's bench. Emma and Lucas sat across from me, their expressions a mix of confidence and apprehension. The hearing began with the usual formalities, the judge's voice echoing through the courtroom as she outlined the proceedings. I listened intently, my heart pounding in my chest as I waited for the right moment to reveal my trump card. As Emma's lawyer began to present his case, I could feel the tension in the room building to a fever pitch. And then it was my turn. Victoria stood up, her voice clear and confident, as she addressed the judge. Your Honor, we have recently discovered that my client, Alex, owns a significant stake in Anderson Clark, the law firm representing Mrs. Emma. This presents a clear conflict of interest, as Mr. Alex has the power to influence the firm's decisions, including who they represent. A gasp echoed through the courtroom as the implications of Victoria's words sank in. Emma's lawyer stammered, his face turning pale as he struggled to form a coherent response. The judge looked at me, her expression inscrutable, before turning her gaze back to Victoria. Counselor, are you suggesting that Anderson Clark should be disqualified from representing Mrs. Emma in this case? The judge asked, her voice steady and measured. Victoria nodded, her eyes never leaving the judge's face. Yes, Your Honor. We believe that the conflict of interest is clear, and that the firm's representation of Mrs. Emma is in direct violation of ethical guidelines. We request that the firm be disqualified, and that Mrs. Emma be given the opportunity to secure new counsel. The courtroom erupted into a flurry of whispers and murmurs as the judge considered Victoria's request. I could feel Emma's gaze burning into me, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. I met her stare head-on, my expression calm and composed. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the culmination of weeks of strategizing and reflection. The judge's gavel slammed down on the bench, silencing the courtroom. In light of this new information, I am inclined to agree with counselor's request. Anderson Clark is hereby disqualified from representing Mrs. Emma in this case. Mrs. Emma, you will have 1 week to secure new counsel. This hearing is adjourned until further notice. As the judge's words echoed through the courtroom, I felt a sense of triumph wash over me. I had done it. I had turned the tables on Emma and her high-powered lawyers, reclaiming my power and asserting my worth. But this was just the beginning. The battle was far from over, and I knew that Emma would not go down without a fight. As I walked out of the courthouse, Jamie and Victoria by my side, I felt a sense of purpose and determination. I had proven to myself and to the world that I was not someone to be underestimated. I had fought back against the betrayal and the pain, emerging stronger and more resilient. And as I looked out at the bustling cityscape, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one defined by authenticity, simplicity, and the impact I could have on the world around me. The weeks following the court hearing were a whirlwind of emotions and strategic maneuvers. Emma had scrambled to find new legal representation, but the damage had been done. Her once confident demeanor had crumbled, replaced by a mix of desperation and resentment. I, on the other hand, felt a sense of calm and clarity that I hadn't experienced in years. The battle was far from over, but I was no longer fighting from a place of anger or betrayal. Instead, I was driven by a desire to protect what I had built and to redefine my life on my own terms. With Anderson Clark disqualified, Emma's new legal team was scrambling to catch up. They requested extensions and adjournments, buying time to build a case that was quickly unraveling. Victoria and I used this time to our advantage, meticulously preparing our counter-arguments and gathering evidence that painted a clear picture of Emma's manipulations and deceit. During this period, I found solace in the simplicity of my cabin retreat. The hum of the city was replaced by the rustle of leaves and the distant call of birds. I spent my mornings on long walks, the crisp autumn air filling my lungs with a sense of renewal. In the evenings, I would sit by the fireplace, a glass of wine in hand, reflecting on the journey that had led me to this moment. I realized that the divorce was not the end of my story, but a catalyst for growth and transformation. As the final court date approached, I felt a profound sense of peace. I had fought hard, not out of a desire for revenge, but to assert my worth and protect what was rightfully mine. The night before the hearing, I sat on the porch of the cabin, the stars above casting a soft glow on the surrounding woods. I thought about the life I had built with Emma, the dreams we had shared, and the pain of her betrayal. But I also thought about the strength I had found within myself, the resilience that had carried me through the darkest moments. The next morning I woke up with the first light of dawn, the cabin filled with a soft golden hue. I dressed carefully, choosing a suit that exuded confidence and professionalism. As I looked at my reflection in the mirror, I saw a man who had been through the fire and emerged stronger, more authentic. I was ready to face whatever the day held, knowing that I had fought with integrity and purpose. The drive to the courthouse was quiet, the only sound the soft hum of the electric engine. As I pulled into the parking lot, I saw Emma standing alone, her eyes fixed on the distant horizon. There was no sign of Lucas, and I couldn't help but wonder if he had abandoned her in her time of need. I felt a pang of sympathy, a reminder of the love we had once shared, but it was fleeting, replaced by a sense of resolve. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. Victoria sat beside me, her expression calm and focused. Across the aisle, Emma's new legal team shuffled papers, their faces a mix of determination and uncertainty. The judge entered, her robes billowing as she took her seat. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment settling over us like a heavy blanket. The hearing began with the usual formalities, the judge's voice echoing through the courtroom as she outlined the proceedings. Emma's lawyer presented their case, their arguments weak and disjointed. They tried to paint me as the villain, a man who had neglected his wife and driven her into the arms of another. But their words fell flat, lacking the conviction and evidence needed to sway the judge. Victoria stood up, her voice clear and confident as she addressed the court. She presented our case methodically, each piece of evidence building a compelling narrative of Emma's manipulations and deceit. She highlighted the conflict of interest with Anderson Clark, the attempts to hide assets, and the ultimate betrayal that had led us to this moment. The courtroom was silent, the weight of Victoria's words settling over the room like a thick fog. As the hearing drew to a close, the judge looked at Emma, her expression stern and unyielding. "Mrs. Emma, in light of the evidence presented, I am inclined to agree with Mr. Alex's counsel. Your actions have been deceitful and manipulative, and your attempts to hide assets and exploit legal loopholes are unacceptable. I hereby grant the divorce, with the division of assets to be determined by the terms outlined in Mr. Alex's proposal." A collective gasp echoed through the courtroom as the implications of the judge's words sank in. Emma's face paled, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, the weight of the past few months lifting from my shoulders. I had fought hard, and I had won, not out of a desire for revenge, but to protect what was rightfully mine and to assert my worth. As I walked out of the courthouse, Victoria and Jamie by my side, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I had been through the fire and emerged stronger, more resilient. I had faced the darkness within myself and found the light, a beacon of hope and renewal. I knew that the journey was far from over, that there would be challenges and setbacks along the way. But I also knew that I had the strength and determination to overcome whatever obstacles lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, I focused on rebuilding my life and my identity. I renamed Anderson Clark to Harper Reed, shifting the firm's focus to tech litigation and philanthropy. I wanted to use my influence and resources to make a positive impact on the world, to help those who had been wronged, and to fight for justice and fairness. I also began mentoring young entrepreneurs, finding fulfillment in guiding and supporting the next generation of innovators. The cabin became more than just a retreat, it was a sanctuary where I could reflect and recharge. I spent my days immersed in nature, finding solace in the simplicity of the woods and the rhythm of the seasons. I cooked simple meals, the act of chopping vegetables and stirring pots grounding me in a way that the constant buzz of the city never could. I read books, their pages filled with stories of resilience and transformation, and I found inspiration in the journeys of others. As the seasons changed, so did I. I shed the layers of expectation and obligation that had defined my life with Emma, embracing a newfound sense of authenticity and purpose. I realized that the divorce was not the end of my story, but a beginning, a chance to redefine myself and the life I wanted to live. I found joy in the simple pleasures of life, the moments of connection and reflection that filled my days with meaning and purpose. One evening, as I sat by the fireplace, a glass of wine in hand, I received a message from Emma. It was short and to the point, an apology for the pain she had caused and a wish for happiness in my future. I stared at the words, the glow of the screen casting a soft light on my face. I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a profound sense of closure. I didn't respond, knowing that the past was best left behind. Instead, I deleted the message and took a sip of my wine, the warmth spreading through me like a gentle embrace. As I looked out at the stars above, I knew that I had found my place in the world, a sense of belonging and purpose that transcended the pain and betrayal of the past. I was no longer the man who had been blindsided by divorce, the man who had fought to protect what was rightfully his. I was a man reborn, a man who had faced the darkness within himself and found the light, a beacon of hope and renewal. And as I took a deep breath, the cool night air filling my lungs, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter in my life, one defined by authenticity, simplicity, and the impact I could have on the world around me.